Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Demetrius. Listen, I want to thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Let's Get Uncomfortable. Listen, today I have a great guest of here, a good friend of mine, actually my best friend, Dr. Keyimani Alford, the author of Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers. Yes. He is the author of this book, y'all. All right, and he is here with me today. Welcome, Keyimani.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you on today.
Oh yeah. Listen. So we gonna jump right into this thing here. So listen, my first question to you is, what inspired you to write Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers?
That's an excellent question. And honestly, it has taken a culmination of years to actually put this out. When I initially thought about Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers, it was based off of conversations that I would have with friends, with coworkers, with family members, just about overall my upcoming and some of the challenges that I face overall in life. A lot of people didn't necessarily know everything that I experienced growing up as a child and even coming from Oakland, California, which is part of the reason as far as the title, over into Milwaukee and everything that was critical that ended up shaping me as an individual. So when I decided to write this book, it was based off of conversations and discussions I would have with students. I work in higher education, and I will be able to share my story with them. And while I would share my story, a lot of people resonated with it. But not only a lot of people resonated, but a lot of people got encouragement from it. So being able to tell my story over the years and being able to put together everything that I faced, dealing with my parents being absent from my life for 10, 15 years in some cases, to dealing with abuse, having to process all of that, understanding since that I was an only child and processing it and realizing that my story had weight and it can help to inspire and bring some level of hope to another person who might be struggling with some of the things and since that I struggled with and had to face and deal with and have a different perspective. It helped to inspire me wanting to tell that story, but then also understanding that my story isn't just for me. And sometimes we feel that, oh, I'm going through this particular situation within life and we're keeping it to ourselves. I truly believe even now, more so than ever, that my story feeds into my purpose. Mm-hmm. And my purpose is to be able to share and explain and have intimate moments with individuals to say, you know what, I went through all of this. And depending on how you look at it, you can either make the decision to utilize it as a crutch, or you can utilize it as a catalyst in sense for you to look at life differently and understand that there's nothing that you go through that you can't overcome. So that helped to inspire as far as the reason why I had to tell my story. Because I believe it's my divine purpose in order to share it with the world.
I love that. So let's talk about this title. It is such a unique title. Can you explain, how did you come up with this title?
Yeah, so initially, and I don't think I've told anyone yet, when I was starting to write this book, I had said that it was going to be the Little Black Boy Journal. Okay. So after I sat with a little bit and just had some conversations and floated it out, I was like, that's not sticking. And I did some research out there, and it was some stuff that was similar to the title. But then I sat with it, and I was driving home from work. I drive back and forth about an hour each week as far as to go to work, or each day for work. And as I was driving back, I was like really in my thought, what do I call this? What do I call this? And I am a person of symbolism. Everything major that has ever happened to me has always been wrapped up in some form of symbolism. So as I was thinking specifically what this book is, what it meant to me, what I was sharing with it, and as far as where it transpired, Oakland Hills. Oakland is where I was born, where I grew up part of my life until I was 11. but it was also the place where I experienced the amount of obstacles and challenges. So the Oakland, the location, the hills, the geographic aspect of, or the symbolism when it comes into life's challenges, the ups and downs, the terrain, the ruggedness. Milwaukee Rivers, Milwaukee is the location that I'm at now, where in a sense that liberation came in and where I was rescued. But rivers, as far as the symbolism, is the aspect of change. If you think about a river, when you think about the river and how it basically meanders throughout the terrain, it has the power to change wherever it basically places itself. It's a form of water, and water, in some cases, you can't limit it. Where it goes is where it goes and creates a new path. So as I was thinking about the symbolism aspect of what this book meant, Oakland Hills, all of the challenge and the obstacles that I faced, but I got landing in Milwaukee. And although I had those challenges and obstacles that I faced, the rivers now give me an opportunity to change that path that I had. And then I added on as far as a memoir of survival, identity, and purpose, because all of that is a culmination of what my life truly can be. I was surviving at one point, but through the survival, I began to identify who I was as a person, which alludes to my purpose overall.
Okay. I get that. So when did you realize that your story was one that needed to be shared with not just your family, but with the world?
Wow. I would say it started in my time of actually meeting with students. So I started in higher education in 1999, and I worked in the financial aid office. And I did that as a student for 3 years, but I crossed over into being an advisor, a financial aid advisor. And during that time, I would have so many students that would be sent to me or would, in some cases, come in for support, and they will be dealing with various situations. And based off of those situations, it would create an opportunity for me to be able to share my story with them. But while sharing my story with them, I was never to the point that I was as vulnerable as I was in the book. But it gave me an opportunity through those situations to be able to share excerpts of who I was as a person and some of the things that I went through. But I had got to a point probably about 5.5, 6 years ago when I was like, after all the stuff that I've been through, the conversations that I've had with people and being able to see the impact and people being shocked, like, oh my God, you're so successful. I had no idea you went through that type of aspect of challenges and change. It was at that point, it was like, you know what? I need to share my story publicly with people. And understanding that at some point it would put me in a place that I would have to tell the whole truth of myself, which is a very vulnerable aspect of the story or within the book. But I felt that in telling my story, that it would help to free somebody else. And it would help to offer a level of change and also offer a level of healing. Because now I've gotten to the aspect of it. I say we don't heal from things that we don't face.
That's real.
So
That's real.
Until, in a sense, we get to a point where we can heal from it, we have to realize that those things that caused us that turmoil or some level of regret and some level of pain, we have to lay it out there. And this was my catalyst for laying it out there and to saying, all right, I want to tell the story, not just for myself, but for someone else that can benefit from reading my story, listening to my story, even witnessing things that I might even post out there within social media about who I am. So it became that point that I was like, I have to tell it. Plus, there was one time I had started writing this, and this is probably about 9-10 months ago, where I was coming back from work because I spent a lot of time driving back and forth. So I'm in my thoughts a lot. Yeah. And God spoke to me. It was nobody else but him spoke to me and told me, you need to finish what you started. So when he told me that, instantly, I was like, all right, I have to do this. So I picked up the pen, picked up notepads, and from there started writing again. And it crafted to the point where I had the manuscript of Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers. But then I had to get to the point where I was like, all right, do you really want to tell this?
Right.
So that's kind of where it all came from for me wanting to tell the story and knowing when I had to tell my story.
Okay. You talk about being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in this memoir, it touches on resilient pain and identity. Mm-hmm. What chapter would you say was the hardest for you to write, and why?
Wow. There are so many emotionally rich chapters within Oakland Hills, Milwaukee Rivers. And even as I got into the second edition of the book, it even expanded even more. But I would say the most challenging chapter for me to write was The Final Goodbye. And The Final Goodbye is a story that I share of the relationship that I was building with my father. And me visiting Oakland, California from Milwaukee several times as I became an adult, I intentionally made purpose to go see my dad and find my mom and things of that nature, and going to Oakland, California. And based off of that, I would build relationship with him. And The Final Goodbye was the aspect of me having to face the relationship that I wanted with my father didn't get to the point that it matured enough. And it was at the end of his life cycle that I had to face, one, that the relationship wasn't what I really wanted. It had grown, but it had got to the point where I had to acknowledge that he was slipping away, and time would not allow me to have truly that father-son relationship that I wanted. So The Final Goodbye is me telling as far as the relationship that we had and how his health had begun to suffer and it had begun to go down, and me literally seeing him wither away within my eyes and within my arms, literally. And having to see him in hospice, to getting a call that he had passed away, but then also realizing that I needed a form of closure. My father got cremated, and I tell the story vividly of me getting the call on that Monday morning of the first day of spring semester of my job, and end up finding out that he passed away and that his wife wanted to cremate him immediately. And I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. So I talk about that and the emotional aspect of what it did to me and the psychological elements of what it did from a father and son relationship, to know that you don't get a chance to tell your father goodbye because you won't have a ceremony in a sense where you can technically touch him. So I talk about me getting on a flight, booking an emergency flight, getting to California, the thoughts that are going through my mind, and me walking into the funeral home with this weight on my shoulder, and to see him laying there lifeless, and me not being able to talk to him, to get some of the questions I wanted to have answered by him, because at that point it was too late. So I talk about that, and it was very, very hard. One is because before he passed, I had spent my whole winter break with him, and he was in hospice. So I sat by his side and things of that nature. And I was naive because I didn't really understand the true understanding of what hospice really meant.
Right.
So I left from his side from my winter break, coming back into my normal routine, thinking that he was okay because they was going to release him from hospice. And I came back and was like, oh, I'll just check on him. And as I was, and within 2 weeks of me coming back, he passed away.
Wow.
So although I told him goodbye when I left California, there's a difference between saying goodbye, thinking that you still have more time. And I didn't. So although the conversations that we had during the time that I was there were cherished, and told me that he loved me, and he told everyone that how proud of me he was, and as far as me, that's my doctor, or he's a doctor. So he would tell all those stories to everyone around. But it was a different element or a different experience to receive a call to say your dad has passed away, or Keyimani, he's gone. I'm so sorry, he's gone. And not have the opportunity to be by his side when he passed. Because if I would have known that he was going to pass away like that, I probably would have never even came back. Right. I would have been there by his side until he took his last breath. But to know that he transitioned without me being by his side, and I'm the only child. So it adds another layer. I'm the only child. We have the absence of him for multiple years, and the relationship wasn't what I wanted it to be. He had never visited Wisconsin to come see me. So there are multiple years where there was this gap of his presence, and having to recant and relive all of those emotions and that experience immediately caused me to cry. From writing it, going back to read it, there was just points of writing that I just had to stop because I wanted our relationship to be so much stronger than what it was. And I didn't have the time in order to get it to where I wanted to be. So it made it so hard for me to talk about and for me to relive and revisit it because of the emotional weight that it carried. And I didn't realize it until a little bit later of me even revising the second edition that I was the last person to technically see him in physical being, physical form. Because after I saw him, then they moved him into basically being cremated. So even his wife didn't see him. So I had to process all of that because I felt that I had to touch him. I had to physically touch him, physically see him in order to have my level of closure. So that's why it was so emotionally rich and emotionally heavy for me to write it. And that's why it became like the hardest one for me to talk about and discuss.
Wow. Yeah, that is heavy. I mean, I will say this. I have read the book and he is absolutely right. It is. I mean, there are so many different parts of the book that will hit you. This particular one, I found myself kind of being like, ooh, this kind of heavy. Let me put this down a little bit, you know? So, but yeah. So I guess during that, the moment of writing the book, was there a time where you felt like that healing was taking its place?
Yeah, I would say in multiple places. One is, and I have to set the stage here, I am an only child who at the age of 11 left both of his parents and moved 2,000 miles away. Now, being an only child is one element, right? But the other component of it is for years, I had no contact with either of my parents. Like they disappeared off the face of the earth. So this young Black boy is yearning for his parents, yearning for their presence, questioning why they abandoned me, questioning why they didn't love me enough for me to be within their life. Why didn't they do enough in order to keep me that the situations that I was in, drugs, alcoholism, sexual abuse, poverty components of it. There were days that I would walk into the house and there was a gallon of water and a bag of green split peas in the refrigerator for me to eat. There were days that I walked into the house, and I talk about it in the book, the day that I came home from school with a friend, hit the light switch and the lights wasn't on. there were days that we were staying on the second story of the house and extension cords ran up the outside of the house to give us power. So all of that became of a level of question where I was like, what happened? And I think it adds additional layer is because my mom, and I talk about this in the book, my mom had 11 miscarriages before I was born. And she had 2 more after I was born. And to understand that I was the miracle child, as my grandmother called me, to understand that element of it and to know that my parents couldn't do enough in order to appreciate the gift that was embedded with me, it created this sense of aspect of that I was often fighting and dealing with. And it created a level of resentment, it created a level of pain, it created a level of hurt that I had to process and that I carried even into my adulthood. And it became things of like, if I ever have kids, I want to make sure that I don't do my kids that way. So yeah, it created a level of healing because I had to think about all of that and I had to write about it. But I had to get to a point to say, you know what, Keyimani, this happened to you, but there's nothing that you can do to change it. So why do you carry it? Why do you allow the situations that occurred years ago to cause you so much pain? Why do you allow it, in a sense, to bring you down from who you are as an individual? And I got to the point where it was like, you know what? I can't allow myself to continue to carry this. I have to offer some level of grace, level of forgiveness, because if God can forgive us for the things that we do, who am I not to forgive my parents who might not have even thought about the impact that it was having on me? So it took me to a place where I had to face what I carried for so long and face the moments where in high school where I just longed for my mom or my dad to show up for my graduation, or for my birthday to get a birthday card, or to receive some kind of gift that other folks around me that was receiving. So I had to let all of that go. And helping to do that was to write about it. It was that aspect of it where I did face it and say, all right, Keyimani, you have now recanted everything that you've went through. What are you going to do about it? You've now laid it in front of you. Are you going to continue? You're going to write about it and you're going to still carry it forward? Or are you going to write about it and let it go? And I had to write about it and let it go because I realized there was nothing that I could change about the past. The only thing that I had control of was the future. And God blessed me enough that I didn't have to allow the situations that I faced to create an opportunity that I would be a stereotype or live up to the statistics of not having your parents and saying because you grew up without a father around that you're going to be in jail, you're going to be selling drugs, you going to be a low life, you can't make anything of yourself. No, that's not my story. My story is, yeah, I went through all of that, but God was gracious enough to put people around me that can give me the love that I needed in order for me to develop into who I am now, to have an advanced degree, to be doing very well within my profession, to have a testimony that there's nothing that I want or desire for that I don't get. And that's not everybody's story. So why would I allow my past to be carried into my future when I'm blessed?
Yeah.
And to know that, in a sense, I could tell my story and be able to share it with someone else, it allows them to be able to know that you can heal from your trauma. You can heal from your pain. And your past doesn't have to define your future. So absolutely, it was healing.
That's real. That's real. So, in your journey from childhood to becoming Dr. Keyimani Alford, what are some of the defining moments that made you who you are today? What are some of those defining moments?
I think for me, it was perspective. Out of everything, I would say Keyimani at his core is a very optimistic person. And I've always tried to be. I tell my team members, my people that report up to me, that the sun is always shining somewhere. And I say that because sometimes we like dwell in our funk, that we allow it to dictate our day and change our day. So I always try to be an optimistic person. But with that, understanding as far as the things that I went through in my family, I was the first person to get a college degree. And my family in Milwaukee and my cousins that we grew up around, I would have defining moments where I had to make decisions of if I kept going or if I basically followed suit with other people. So within the book, there is a chapter, I think it's called Cartoons, Cousins, and something else. I think that's a chapter. But there's one chapter in there I talk about growing up in the house with three of my other cousins. They were all older than me. And we're all in the house. All of us at one point were all in high school. And every year, someone dropped out of high school. Every year, like clockwork. 1 year, oldest cousin dropped out. She had a kid and did what she needed to do, dropped out of high school. Next year, my other cousin that I talked about, I call him Jamal. in the book, he's like an older brother or whatever. He ended up dropping out of high school. Next year after that, the sister, they were all sisters and brothers. And then she dropped out of high school, like a semester away from graduating. She dropped out. And then it came to me, where it's like, all right, Keyimani, you're in your junior year in high school. What do you do? Do you follow suit with everyone? And I had to make the decision, like, not graduating is not an option for me, because I needed to do something that changes the trajectory of what my life was. So that was one of the defining moments as far as just thinking about just high school and graduating, what education would do for me as far as the whole economic mobility aspect of it. And I know people now talk about what's the quality of higher education. There is definitely quality and a benefit from getting a college degree, from many aspects of financial liberation, economic mobility, well-roundedness of different things. But we're not talking about all that. But I mean, that was one of the defining moments. I think the other defining moment was, which actually I say is the nucleus of the book, is when my aunt, and I call her Aunt Grace, she comes to California and she sees me sitting on the floor. And I want to paint this picture for you. You have a 10-year-old boy sitting on the floor. It's maybe a Saturday, sitting on the floor. The only thing in the bedroom is a twin-size bed sitting on a metal box frame. In the middle of the floor, it's not even against the wall, middle of the floor, there's probably one or two pieces of clothes hanging up in the closet. Little boy sitting on the floor looking at a 12-inch black and white TV that's sitting on orange milk crate.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there peaceful, right? Because that's all I have. So I'm sitting there watching my cartoons, and my aunt is visiting from Milwaukee. She comes in, having conversations with my mom, and then asks, where's my nephew? So she comes, knocks on the door, and she sees me sitting in the room with basically nothing there. So she has some love and some compassion that her and one of my other aunts understands the nature of the environment that I'm in and makes a conscious effort to take in a boy that wasn't her responsibility in order to provide opportunity or see into the purpose of who I was, the foresight. Maybe it's the divine connection of who she was spiritually. but be able to see me in that moment and see where I can be, it became like the nucleus of my book because she didn't have to do it. And that's one thing that, in a sense, I'm really appreciative of, because there's so many layers to it. One is she didn't have to. The second thing is she decided to. But the other aspect of it is she was my aunt, but she's technically not my biological aunt.
Mm.
So we know how we are as Black people. We have moments where we grow up around people and we're married into a family, but your dad might not necessarily be my dad, or your mom might necessarily be my mom. So we have shared siblings. And that was a case with me, where she was the oldest, but technically her mom was not my mother's mother, and her dad was not my mother's dad.
Wow.
So although they were considered to be sister and brother, aspect of all of them, was several of them, she still, in a sense, took me underneath her wing as her nephew.
Mm.
And looked past all of the minutia,
Right.
of truly bloodline stuff, and took a gamble on me. So that was one of, I would say, the most pivotal defining moment for me, was that moment, outside of the many things that I talk about within the book, but then just having the perspective of creating an opportunity to do something more. And I think that picture that I paint of her coming in and within that room, and the decisions that I decided to make even later on in life, graduating from high school, going to college, was a reflection of my way to say thank you to her, because I knew that it was something that she didn't have to do. And because those, in the sense that she invested in, some of my other cousins that were there, they were her daughter's kids that she was raising as well within the house. So she had 4 kids. She didn't birth them,
Right,
but she took on the responsibility to raise them. And I will say, and I don't know if I necessarily said it in the book, I'll say it now, I felt like she sat there, and as people were dropping out of high school, that they were letting her down from the investment that she made in order to keep them together. And I couldn't let that happen. I felt that I owed it to myself, but also owed it to her as a tribute to the sacrifice that she made in order to say what you did was not in vain. So a lot of some of the things that I did was, yes, self-gain for myself, to attribute to who I became as a doctor, to bring back some level of appreciation to her. But it was, in some cases, to share to her, or to demonstrate to her, that out of everything that you did, or you sacrificed and you gave, and people, and I have to say this, and I talk about it a lot in the second edition of the book, but people did my aunt horrible. From stealing her money to just doing like crazy things, talking crazy, disrespecting her, and just overall just doing things that you would think a person who basically would give you the shirt off of their back, you wouldn't treat them that way. But there was elements that she was just done wrong, like completely wrong. And I could not allow the investment that she made in me to come back void. If I was the only thing that within her life gave her hope and inspiration for her obeying the voice of God based off of her heart, then I wanted my life to do that.
Wow. Yeah. So heavy, man. It's heavy. So when writing a book, you're been very transparent about the trauma, the loss, setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, what gave you strength to write about it? You know what I'm saying? Because you're talking about family members and things like that. You know, what gave you the strength to say, "Hey, okay, I need to do this." I mean, they're going to hear it, they're going to read about it. What gave you that strength, man?
It was the person that would pick up the book. Honestly, we're overcome by the words of our testimony. That's scripture, right? And we can't testify about something unless we talk about something. And we can't overcome something unless we talk about it. And it's also the healing aspect of it. That's where we're overcoming. And that's where we heal from talking about it and overcoming. But what gave me the strength aspect of it, one is God. I felt that, well, I shouldn't say I felt anything. I know that God divinely inspired me to write this book. So the strength came from him in order to determine what stories I told, how I told it, and to the level of vulnerability of it. And I said earlier that there were moments in the sense of like, all right, you wrote it. Now, you sure you want to say this? I went back and forth many times about like, Keyimani, do you really want to share what happened to you in that closet? Do you really want to share all of these moments and how you felt in the drug abuse as far as your mom and how you told your mom that you hated her after she beat you because she was mad you came home late from school and she beat you in front of all your friends who were standing outside, and a little kid embarrasses you like that. So it's like, do you get to the point that you share these intimate moments and share moments in the sense of where you've never told anyone? Like, you're my best friend, and there was stuff in there that I had never shared with you.
It's real.
So it's like, where do you get to the point that you're okay and you have that strength from it? And I think for me, it was understanding that there's going to be somebody that's going to pick this up. And if I don't be 100% transparent and vulnerable, I could negate the impact that it's going to have on them.
It's real.
So the strength came from me, one, knowing that God told me to tell the story. Two, being able to recognize that from past conversations and discussions with folks, that the story had strength and validity and intent and the ability to change people's perspective. And then the other aspect of it that gave me strength is just like really just taking a risk to understand that this was something that I was doing as a form of healing to get past of all of those situations and the trauma and the things in the sense that I didn't tell anyone about or didn't talk about. But then also understanding that at the end, this is going to be a part of my legacy and something that is going to linger or last even after I'm gone, that can continue to heal someone, continue to grab them emotionally and allow them to act like they're in front of a mirror and see their own situation and understand that they can get past whatever they're experiencing.
It's real. It's real. All right. So if young Keyimani could read this book, what do you think he'll say?
I think the first thing you'll probably say is, wow. Wow, I can't believe you got through all of that. And he will also say, if it was a young Keyimani reading it, that I had no idea that you could be this strong.
Wow.
I had no idea that life would turn out the way that it did for you. I would think also say that it was worth it. every up and down, every emotional pull, every level of disappointment, it was all worth it. And it had a purpose.
Mm.
And you're going to get through it. No matter what you feel in this moment, you're going to get through it just fine.
Like that. That's good. That's good stuff. So how can, as far as like churches, schools, families, do a better job at helping young Black men navigate through the pain and the pressure?
I would say create the space for it. One thing that is just like really interesting to me, and it has been interesting, is sometimes we look at the situations that a person is going through, and we try to sweep it underneath the rug. And instead of trying to get to the root of why are you feeling like this? Why are you acting out? Why are you having these temper tantrums? Why are you finding yourself in this emotional state where you might feel like you're depressed or don't want to talk about it, or withdrawing yourself from a particular situation? Why are you distant? What is causing that? And what can we do in order to support you so that you can have that space and you feel comfortable talking about it? I think it's important, of course, to have some aspect of people that you can confide in, to have that level of trust. But the challenge is that sometimes we don't have people around us that we feel that we can trust to be our full, authentic, and true selves.
True.
So we build up walls as we're navigating life and navigating these challenges. We build up walls and don't want to let those walls down.
Real talk.
To folks. Because one is we feel that they won't understand the situation that we are. And when I'm thinking about it, you're thinking about the church, you're thinking about schools, various areas or spaces that we're in. If we're not open and honest and willing to share, we're not going to ever be able to make that connection. Now, I do want to talk about, let's talk about the church a little here. I love the church, been in the church 35 years. But the church, in my opinion, does not do a good job with creating space to have these conversations. Sometimes it's, oh, you're dealing with this situation, let's pray about it. Or I'm going to pray over your life, or you're going to get through this because the word says you're going to get through this. Yes, the word has so much wisdom and so much guidance. And yes, we can pray until we're blue in the face. But sometimes it's not going to be the prayer that's going to get us through. It's having the space to be able to discuss it and have these real life conversations about what we're going through, what we're experiencing, and not placing judgment or blame on the individual, having a level of compassion to understand, and the love to be able to love someone through their situation, through their circumstance, without saying, all right, we're going to sweep this underneath the rug, and I'm only going to deal with the situation in a sense that does not offend me. And when we get to the point, in the sense that we can love people through their situations, love people past their situations, I think it would create the aspect of it where we can have some level of liberation. So I'll leave it as that.
Hey, listen, that's a whole nother topic.
It is.
Can dig deep in. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, what do you hope that the readers will walk away from when reading Oakland Hills, Milwaukee Rivers?
Me personally, I think that, or I feel that anyone that reads the book is that they can have an opportunity that they can be open and honest with themselves. I have created space for vulnerability to exist, and understanding that the reader has the foundation to be able to look in that mirror and understand, like, my situation, what I'm going through right now, yes, it might be bad. Yes, it might not be the ideal situation that I want. But just as Keyimani has dealt with the situations, it all boils down to the perspective that I have regarding my situation. And understanding that if he endured his situations and all of the vulnerability and stuff that I share, that if he can endure it, so can I, if I have the right perspective. And having the right perspective then creates the space to be able to discuss it, to confide or finding someone else to have a conversation or discussion about it. But ultimately, it allows the opportunity to be able to heal from those things that we've carried or have continued to carry, so that it does not weigh us down from our purpose. So that's what I hope the reader will get from getting Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers, a memoir of survival, identity, and purpose.
Okay. So, do you have any plans for a follow-up project, documentary, live reading, anything? I mean, any plans?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So I originally released Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers in November of 2024. So 7-8 months ago, I released it then, and it had 19 chapters where it talked about, I think when I look at it, it set the stage. It says, all right, this is what I went through. This is what I went through. This is what I survived. And what I did was, and it's just even as of this month, I released the second edition of Oakland Hills. It's Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers, a memoir of survival, identity, and purpose that expanded that emotional arc. So it adds some additional context and additional depth into those stories. And it moves from, this is what I dealt with, this is what I survived, to this is how I processed it, and this is how I healed from it. And adding that extra element dives deeper into the psychological moments that I had to sit with myself, and often the things that I had to process with myself. So it allowed me to be able to release this second edition. So with that is that as far as the component of the Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers piece of it. But I will also say with the second edition, I talk about, as far as the parental absence, the father absence, the addiction, having to deal with the sexual abuse that's within the book, along with the whole celebration of individuals that's within your lives that basically serve as your guardian angels to help you meander through your challenges and obstacles. But I ended with one unresolved situation, and that's sexuality. And I ended that way because I processed everything else in relation to my life and forgave the various elements of the individuals that were dealing with it or that were a part of that piece of it. But the sexuality piece of it is one that has been a journey that I've explored and had to process. And there's been, in the book, I talk about the second edition, I'll talk about it a little bit more and give additional insight and context to the sexuality aspect of it over the span of the years that I have. But I will say the whole sexuality component of who you love, why you love, how you love was one thing that I did not necessarily dive deep into. And ending Oakland Hills Milwaukee Rivers, a memoir of survival, identity, and purpose, the second edition, ending that, I left it unresolved. One is because I think it's something that needs to be explored all on its own. So I end the book in somewhat of a statement like, you walk with me through the hills and you see me cross the rivers. And this is not the end of my story, but now you'll get a chance to see me in the mirrors. So the mirrors is going to be another publication that I put out, another book that I'm going to spend some in-depth time looking at how we process sexuality within ourselves from a psychological aspect of it, and then also the nuances of people that have their own opinions about things, institutions that have their own thoughts about it, and then how we have to navigate life, understanding, do I accept myself or do I conform to what others want me to be? Or do I face the moment where I feel that life isn't even worth living? So how do you process all of that? So I want to talk about that in some real good detail about that emotional component of it and the weight of sexuality, the weight of institutional dogma, the weight of biblical principles and practices. How do you feel when you sitting in a church and the preacher is up and saying that everybody, if you like, well, I'll put it like this, and sitting in church and they say, all y'all sissies, y'all going to hell. And you have to sit in that space and like, wait, hold on. The way that I might be feeling or thought that come across my mind is saying that I'm going to be condemned to hell. Is that a scare tactic? Is it something that is innate, that's a part of your being as far as who you are? Or is it something in the sense that a person say, you know what, I don't like that. And because I don't like that, I am going to now condemn you to not being a human being or incapable of being loved or incapable of even being in the same space with me. So I want to talk about that because it's one that sometimes we shun away from. And I saw it within my family. I saw it within relationships. I saw it within the church, and then even in workspace. What are the things that, since you talk about, or you can talk about within spaces that you can truly be 100% yourself?
True.
So I want to talk about it. So that'll be another project that I'll talk about.
Sounds very interesting.
Oh, it will be.
Sounds very interesting. So I was going to actually like walk past this question, but it is so important as far as for me, and I think it's important just for people just to be able to hear, like, how does your faith play a role in your journey?
I would say I have to liken myself to the quote in the song lyrics. Without God, I would be nothing. And I mean that 100%. Because as I reflected back to all the trauma I faced, the situations that I faced, the challenges that I had to overcome, I had to at some point root myself into understanding that all of this had to work out for my purpose and get past a moment of saying, God, do you like really hate me or something? Why couldn't my life be like my friend where they had both of their parents in the house and they had everything that they needed? Why did I have to be the one that had to have hand-me-downs, or in order for me to get a decent pair of shoes, I had to get them from my cousin who no longer wanted the shoes anymore and passed them down to me? Like, how come my life couldn't be like that? So it got to the point where there were just different elements along my journey, along my life, that would just plant seeds within my life. My grandmother, my actual maternal grandmother, before she passed, she indicated that I was the miracle child. And that stuck with me. She passed when I was like 5. And I remember it vividly of her saying that I was the miracle child. It all made sense at some point, but that was a connection that I had to like really connect together to understand that although I went through everything I went through, God was still with me through all of it. And he reminded me of it throughout my life, because I don't think there's ever been a moment where I didn't necessarily get what I needed. Yes, life has been hard, but I have always felt that God's presence, God's protection, God's provision has always been there. And it's been a really fascinating thing to see. And the reason why I say that is because I talked about earlier when we were talking about as far as the book and how I came up with the title of the book, and I talk about symbolism. And that's been always one of the ways that I knew God was there, because there was always things that he would reveal in front of me, or just do things that would just totally fascinate me or blow me away, that provided a level of provision for me. Like, here's an example. I was working in Milwaukee, at UW Milwaukee, and I was working there for several amount of years, 14 years, I think I was at the institution. And I had gotten to a point where there was no room for growth. And I was like, so what is next? I can't stay here. There's no opportunity for me to move into another role, another position. What do I do? So I'm praying about it, and God, what do I do? And one of my colleagues came to me and was like, hey, Keyimani, did you see this position that opened up? And it was a training position at Great Lakes Higher Education. And I was like, yeah, I did see that. And at one point I always said I wanted to go into training or be a trainer for the Department of Ed. Like, yeah, I saw it or whatever. So I was like, maybe I'll apply for it. I had saw it before the person came to me. I was like, maybe I should consider this. And then she came to me. It was like, hey, Keyimani, you saw this. It's like, okay. Maybe I should apply for it. So I applied for it. I interviewed. Here's the craziness of it. I interviewed for the position. It was a phone interview. Interviewed for the position and was fine. It went well. I'm like, we'll get back to you, let you know next steps or whatever. Probably about 2-3 weeks passed. I didn't hear anything. A month later, I ended up getting another call. Hey, Keyimani, there's been some changes. We want to have another interview for you. Are you available? I was like, yeah, we'll call you at this day. So I remember they called me, and I'm still working in UWM. So I go sit in my car to have this conversation. And they interviewed me like, all right, so we'll reach back out to you, let you know the next steps. And I'm like, okay. So they called me back maybe 2 days later. Hey, Keyimani, we want to offer you the job as a trainer. Would you take it? Here's the salary and everything. Salary was probably about $15,000-$20,000 more than what I was making at the current. So like, absolutely. But the kicker is, I never had an in-person interview. So 2 phone interviews, and they decided to hire me for this position. One based off of who I was, but then also other people who were connected to me. So they hired me off of that aspect of it. So I was like, okay, God, why are we doing this like crazy? I've never had an interview that I got hired and people didn't even see my face. So that was one situation where I knew God was there. Another situation was kind of similar, where I was working at Great Lakes in Madison. I had an office there. I moved to Madison. I had an at-home office there, and I would drive past the institution that I work at now. And I looked over and like, one day I'm gonna work there. I was like, it's a beautiful campus. One day I'm gonna work there. Drive past it. Nothing at anything or whatever. Never thought about it. So one day I get a call from a colleague that was like, hey, Keyimani, we got this manager position that's open at the college. I think you would do good at the job. You should apply. I'm like, I was like, I don't know if I want to apply, because I applied and I didn't even get an interview. I was like, I don't know if I want to go there. So I had applied, and folks didn't even acknowledge that they received my application or anything of that nature. So I'm like, all right, it's fine. Ended up finding out another colleague ended up getting the job. So I was totally fine. Like, I knew them, we worked together. So A colleague called me. I was like, all right, I'll try it. I applied for the position and got an interview. This one was an in-person interview too. So I get the second interview and they ended up hiring me for the job. So I was like, this is kind of interesting because I drove past it and said, one day I want to work there. Not recognizing or knowing in the sense that one day I will work there. And I did that. And I remember going through the interview process, and the president was a black man. He's retired now. I was like, I wonder what it would be like to work for a black leader, a black president. So I ended up working for him, whatever. And I got to the college, and at that point, my direct supervisor, they were pairing you up with mentors. So they only want to connect you with a mentor. You have one from someone that we select, and then you can select somebody. Like, so Keyimani, do you have anybody in mind that you would want to be your mentor? I was like, I want to shoot for the stars. I want the president to be my mentor. And he was like, well, he's never did that before, but we'll ask him. And he said yes.
Wow.
So step into the role. I had a mentor who actually ended up being my boss. She was a mentor or whatever, and she ended up transitioning from the college. But then the other thing is I ended up having the president be a mentor for me.
Wow.
And to this day, he's left the institution, and he's been instrumental in my growth. I started as a manager 8 years and 7 months ago at the institution, and now I'm an AVP. Where every couple of years I was advancing, getting additional responsibilities and different things from the connection and the relationship and understanding that God divinely puts me in places. I've never wanted to be in a position just to be in a position. I always wanted to make sure that it was in his will. And actually that was a prayer that I had even last night, that God, I don't want you to place me in any situation that isn't a part of your will.
Yes.
I might aspire to do something and might get disappointed about it. If I don't get it, I understand it's testament that it's not a part of your will. And I think that's where I get my faith from. Aspect of it, understanding that God is a part of me. One is because all of these years he's provided, giving me provision. So I don't want to be outside of that protection that he's given me all of these years, and that assurance and that ability for me to be able to sit back another time and have a moment where it's like, when it comes to your faith, how do you know that God, in a sense, has been with you, or it's why he's strong? Because he's demonstrated
That's real
over the years as far as where he was and what he's done for me. So that's why my faith is strong, and how I know, in a sense, all of the connection, the divine connection is worth it, and where he plays and where my faith plays into everything that goes in. I wouldn't have wrote that book if God wouldn't have told me to do it.
Oh, you'll make me take off and run up in here. Look at God. Yes, God. That's all right, man. That's heavy. That's heavy. That's heavy. So what advice do you give someone who feels like they want to share their story, but they don't seem to have that courage to? They want to share it.
I would say pray about it, of course. I think everyone has a story. Literally, everyone has a story, and I think the story is worth being told. If a person is at a point that they are second guessing if their story is worth being told, or if they're afraid of telling it, I think they need to get past the point of it being their story and understand that it's a story that's theirs, but it's a story for somebody else.
That's good, man.
And
that's good.
When they realize the story is for someone else, and the impact that their story can have on someone else, then I think it'll help to give them that strength in order to do it. And I'll say this. I had a similar conversation with someone. Actually, it was a preacher. We had some variations of different things, but we were having a conversation and we talked about somewhat of the element of the book I talk about, because I talked about the church, and I vividly share as far as how I felt the church did me at one point of my life. And I shared that, isn't it interesting how I'm vulnerable about sharing the story? But the other side of the coin, as I would say, is that I don't know if not sharing my story could save somebody else's life. Mm. So me being able to understand and having the courage to be able to share the story isn't just for me. Yeah, it gives me an opportunity to say, hey, you're a published author. Yay. It's so hard to publish and so much stuff that goes behind the publishing aspect of it. But being able to share the story, to understand and have the hope, in some cases, the reassurance that one day somebody is going to pick up this book and be transformed, be liberated, have some aspect of healing, have a form of forgiveness. That is the point, in a sense, that gives me, as far as that liberation or that freedom in order to do it. And I think, or I feel, that the same person who might be sitting with those emotions, is it worth me doing it? Absolutely. Because the blessing isn't just for you, it's for somebody else. In the future that your story is going to impact. And when you discover that and understanding you can grab hold to that, that's when some of that dissipates. There will be still some aspects of, what do I want to share? How do I want to share it? But I think it's the ultimate impact that the story is going to have on somebody that should be the thing that allows the person to be able to launch forward, to be able to tell that story.
That's good. Okay. So one final question that I have for you, and because I know you and I know you have not thought about this, but if your book was turned into a film, what actor would play you?
Oh, wow.
See, I told you wouldn't have thought about it.
Yeah, now that is a really good question. Who would I want to play me? Who would I want? They have to be an actor that's still alive. Mm-hmm. Maybe Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
I think he can capture the emotional arc of what I went through, or what is his name? It's Idris something, but it's not Idris. Not the one that everybody be fanning out over. It's the other one. Idris.
What was he in?
He was in I think it was HBO or Showtime series, Snowfall. Yeah, he was the lead actor for Snowfall.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
But part of his name is Idris something. It's not Idris. I think Idris might be his last name. But I think he would do a really good job based off of the story or the series Snowfall and the character that he displayed, as far as being drug dealer and then actually become a drug addict.
Okay.
And then all of those transitions, I think he would do a really excellent job actually playing my role.
Okay. All right. So how can the people connect with you? How can they support you, your mission? So tell the people.
Yeah, so a person can reach out to me, of course. Anyway, of course, if you want to buy my books, it's everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, Kobo, Walmart. It's out there. Oakland Hills, Milwaukee Rivers, a memoir of survival, identity, purpose is there. However, there is a platform. I have a platform called Dr. Key Speaks. So Dr. Key Speaks is my personal platform that I have created that allows me to be able to speak into the lives of those who might have ever felt like their story didn't matter, their life didn't matter, to be able to motivate, to inspire, and to bring a form of hope, a form of healing. And on that platform, Dr. Key, Dr. Speaks.com, it basically chronicles everything as far as my opportunities for facilitating workshops, trainings within the higher education space, within the healing space. It also has my publications for all of my books, workbooks, journals, in the sense that I have there. It also has a motivational blog, insight blog. So every week I provide a motivational blog and provide what I call keywords. So they're motivational quotes that I provide to the public that speaks into the lives of us and really have us to think about how things can be better based off of a renewed and a positive perspective is there. And then also on the page, I have a contact me page. So you can go on there, type in what you want to chat with me about in order to provide that. But of course, it is there. Reach out to me there. But of course, if you just want to send me an email, Dr. Key Speaks at gmail.com. You can reach out to me there and we can have conversation. I would love to connect to as many people as I can. It doesn't necessarily have to be you buying a book. It could be just us having a conversation like this to discuss as far as what things you have went through within life, and me being able to speak into your life to say that, hey, what you're going through doesn't have to be the end. You have a greater purpose, and there's a reason why your mom's egg and your father's sperm came together to create you. There's divine purpose in the conception of you as an individual. And I would love to have those kind of conversations, because sometimes we lose sight of that we're here for a particular reason. It's something that we're supposed to fulfill within the earth.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about, helping us as people to get over our challenges, get over our obstacles, and connect with our divine purpose through our authentic selves.
That's real. That's real. Well, whew. Yeah, this was a great interview. Dr. Keyimani Alford, I want to thank you for being on our show today. Another conversation on Let's Get Uncomfortable. Again, thank you, man. It was truly an honor just having you here. Great discussion. So make sure, if you guys haven't, make sure you guys go out and get the book. He done gave y'all the information. So find him, but support. He's doing great things. And I think I'm not gonna say I think, I know this book is healing. It is definitely going to help set you free, some of those things that you've been dealing with, or whether it's family, whether it's personal. This is the book. Make sure you guys go out and get it. As always, I want to thank you guys just for tuning in. And you know what I say, y'all. Love, peace, and hair grease. Until next time.